I truly believe that life is just one big puzzle, and every day you're trying to put a piece together, trying to put the pieces together, try and figure out how to actually live a good, profitable, fulfilling, fruitful life. So in this episode, I'm going to put it into a template. I have a graphic, I have it written down here. I will take a picture of it and put it on screen at the end of this podcast episode. But I'm going to be talking about the different puzzle pieces to life, and obviously it's different for everybody, but I think this is a good template as to if you want to live a good life, a fulfilling life, a fruitful life, what types of things do you have to look for? What types of things do you have to put together to put the pieces of the puzzle together to be able to live as good of a life, as fruitful of a life as you possibly can. So this is going to be a good concept. I really hope you enjoy it. I've put some good effort into this video, so I really hope it is something that you learn from, that you make some changes into your life to help you move in a better direction to live a better life. We all want to live a good life, man. And however the pieces fit for you, it'll be a little bit different than the template that I have here, but hopefully this can be of good use to you so that you can do better in your life each and every day. So without further ado, welcome back to the 365 podcast. Let's get right into it. I make a podcast episode every single day for 365 days. You will be hated for speaking the truth.
You definitely have like an X-ray goggles on where you can see someone's aura.
A house divided against itself shall not stand. Matthew chapter 12, verse 25.
If you want to make something of yourself, forget your political beliefs.
Because different believers experience God in different ways, different non-believers need different explanations to see God as real. Things that make you angry suck you in.
Satan's plan fails, right? And God's plan prevails.
So again, this is a template, but I've simplified it into a 16-piece puzzle, 4x4 puzzle. It's not, obviously it's not going to be like that. The puzzle of life, and kind of how I think about it, is like it's so much more complicated than it, but hopefully this can be something that makes things a little bit more specific for you, that you could know what you're looking for, right? So I'm going to get into it piece by piece, and I've specifically structured it in a way where the corners are the most important, and then the sides are also pretty important, and then the middle is kind of the less important but still necessary stuff to live a good life. And again, we all want a good life. We all want to be fulfilled, but the question is, how do you get there? What does it look like? And I think this is a good basis. It's a good base to kind of base your beliefs off of. So I'm going to get right into it. Let's start with the puzzle pieces. Let's start with the four corners, which are the most important things. They're the four most important things that you need in your life, because without the corners, like the corners are the first thing that you look for when you're assembling an actual real puzzle. Similarly in life, these four things are what you need to be focusing a lot of your time on in order to make your life fruitful, right? So let's start with the first corner, which is, first and foremost, before anything else, you have to have a faith. You have to believe in something higher than yourself, something greater than yourself, bigger than yourself. Because I find that in this world, so many people are self-centered, they're prideful, they think that they are the ones that are doing everything. I'm of the belief that there is a God out there, and he's Jesus Christ, because I'm a Christian man. I believe in his works to be the most true out of everything out there. But you have to believe in something. I think believing in something is better than believing in nothing. Like, I'm honestly of the belief that if you're like a hardcore atheist and you're vehemently arguing that God doesn't exist, it's like you have just as much proof as we do, right? To say that God does exist. So I think you're not basing your life off of anything that has a deeper foundation. If you make Christ your foundation for everything else you do in your life, everything else kind of becomes easy. You can build off of faith. And we do everything in our life by faith. But I truly believe that faith is the one thing that you need to have in something greater than yourself, because it is that power, that strength you can derive from that belief that you have, that will allow you to move forward in a better way and allow you to understand when you're doing things that are wrong, when you're not acting in the right way, and when you have to do better, when you have to make changes to yourself. The easiest way to kind of keep yourself accountable is to have faith, understand the faith, and kind of lean more and more into it. I think if you have nothing at all, there's no foundation, it just kind of, it becomes what the atheists believe. It becomes just a big blob. Like, it becomes just a big mess. What faith can bring is a peace of mind, a structure to how you go about things, a philosophy that you base your life off of, that is something a lot more deeper, a lot more meaningful than having no faith. So I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, as he says himself. But I really do think that being a Muslim or being a Jew or having some faith that is higher than ourselves is still better in comparison to atheism. I think atheism is probably a very big killer of a lot of people's joy and a lot of people's desire in life, because they've built their entire life off of this foundation that God doesn't exist, and I think it's a miserable existence personally. So I think any faith is better than nothing. You have to find that thing that really speaks to you, that higher power. Believe in God. Believe in God, and kind of everything else will fall into place. And faith is the most important thing. It is the cornerstone. And I think there are passages in the Bible that talk specifically about the fact of faith as a cornerstone. It is a cornerstone for everything that you do. It is the foundation for everything you do. That's why in this puzzle of life, it has to be the first piece that you put down in the puzzle. It has to be your faith. It has to be believing in something that is greater than yourself. And for the reasons I've aligned as well, on this show, I've talked so much about faith, so much about the importance of it, that you can go watch some of those other episodes. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I think it is the most important thing, without a shadow of a doubt, having faith in something greater than yourself, because it is that power that allows you to move forward. And I personally just think it's a very miserable existence to think that you're just by yourself alone, and everything you do is because of you and you only, and when you die you just go into a pile of rubble, and so then life feels meaningless, right? What God tells us is life is not meaningless. We each as individuals have meaning, and we have a purpose, and God loves us, right? No matter how evil we are, no matter how much we fail and we fall short, he loves us. And I think that's meaning enough. I think that is more than enough to keep you going, to keep you moving forward, just constantly thinking about these things. So that's why deep faith, deep belief in something bigger than yourself is the most important thing for this whole puzzle of life. So let's go to the second corner, which is really important as well. Obviously, the four corners are all very important. It is your health. Your health is the most important. There's a quote out there that you have a million problems until you get sick. Then your health is the only thing you're focused on. Because, well, that's life, right? Sometimes there are things that you can't control, right? Sometimes you get a disease, you get contracted with something, and it kind of, you get into some car crash, or like a situation that is really out of your control, and there's nothing you really could have done about it, that leads you to not being in a healthy state. But when you have the control, it's really up to you to be in control. It's to take care of your body, because your body is the foundation for everything as well. Your body truly is a temple, and you have to treat it like it. You got to treat it like a holy, sacred thing. You don't want to put anything inside of your body that will harm it. And unfortunately, in this world, so many people do that. But it's very simple. Like, if you are healthy and you live a healthy life and you have a healthy lifestyle, that will make your life just better. Just straight up, just purely. Because of the fact that, first of all, you're secreting hormones, like good hormones, healthy hormones. You're burning off calories, burning off potential toxins that might be in your body by constantly working out. Eating healthy is just better for you. You'll have more energy during your days. And like, you'll be active, you'll be out there instead of being lazy by yourself in your house all day on the couch, or whatever the narrative, the stereotype you want to put on it. You're out there, you're active, you're working out, and you're feeling better, you're feeling great, and you're only going to be extending the years on your life because of a healthy lifestyle. What health looks like is, of course, a good diet. I'm not saying you should be so 100% strict about things. Like, you can have a cheat meal here and there, but you need to be relatively locked in. Like, you need to be having healthy foods, like whole foods, like fruits, vegetables, meats, rice, pasta, some combination of those things. And you need to be obviously having a good amount of protein in your diet, a good amount of carbs, a good amount of fats, like a good balance of the three. Of course, you learn it in school. It's the most basic thing, right? Like yogurt, very good for you, despite, contrary to some modern beliefs, yogurt and milk and that type of stuff, dairy is very good for you. Of course, if you're not allergic, some people are allergic. That's it's a bit of an issue, but if you're not allergic to it, dairy is very good for you. There are alternatives, even if you are allergic to it, or if you don't want to drink milk, there are alternatives. Not as good, but still better than eating junk food, chips, and crap. But yes, fruits and vegetables consistently, meats, pasta, whole grains, other types of whole grains, dairy, milk for the calcium and other vitamins. And if you have to take, sometimes people even supplement other vitamins because they need a little bit more protein, get as much protein as you can in your diet, and your diet can be like that. But obviously, you need to limit saturated fats, limit sugars, limit sodium, limit those types of things that, like cholesterol, those types of negative things that can cause a lot of issues in your life in the future. I'm not saying you have to be 100% perfect. Again, you can have a couple of cheat days here and there, but maybe 80 to 90% of your days has to be eating healthy. It does. It does. Eating healthy, and then you have to complement it with exercising every day in some way. If some days might be harder than others, but whether it's going to the gym, whether it's doing running, whether it's playing sports, some level of exercise where you're moving, you're getting out there, and even if it's just like a light workout in your basement, or if it's going outside for a walk, it's better than nothing. It's better than sitting around all day being sedentary. These things are the two most important things for your health: is good diet, good exercise, good consistent exercise. Those are the two most important things for your health that will help you move forward and just continue growing in your life physically, and it will just make you feel better. It'll make you feel great. And another portion of health is sleep. I know, again, some days it can't be perfect, right? I understand, but you're in control of a lot of things. You can control when you're in bed, and sometimes you can't control when you have to wake up. But if you're in bed early, you get your 8 hours, you get your consistent sleep. You do the strategies that you need to do to have a good sleep. Some people tape their mouth. Some people use a sleep mask. Some people, they have fans in their rooms, covers, whatever the thing you need to do to make your sleep as good as possible. Do it. Be in bed early. The better sleep you have, like I've seen it in my life. Like I'll just give a quick example. Like when I'm working my job and I have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, when I'm able to be in bed like before 10 o'clock and wake up at that time, I feel great. It's a night and day experience. But when I'm like in bed a little bit later, it takes too long to fall asleep because I messed up I slept too much the night before, for example. It took too long to fall asleep. Then I only had like 3 to 5 hours of sleep. Felt terrible. It was a drag. I really had to push to get through the days. But when I had that night where I slept so well, it was such a different experience. Like I felt sharp. I felt like I had the clarity. I was feeling good. Like I was a little bit more driven, a little more excited, motivated. And that's kind of what you want to aim for, right? Obviously, it's like if you lose sleep, that's detrimental because sleep is your body's time to recover what it needs to recover and reset. If you don't have enough time to reset and consistent amount of time where you're not getting enough sleep, obviously that's going to cause a lot of problems in the future. So sleep is a huge portion of the health. A lot of times people neglect it. Sometimes you have things in life that you can't control, but you can control a couple of important things that will make a huge difference. So your health includes sleep, it includes your diet, it includes exercise, it includes monitoring. I think a part of health is monitoring where you're at, right? Like getting consistent checkups, doing your blood work, making sure things are good, right? Making sure like because you can be fit and healthy and still have a problem, you don't even know it, right? And then if that problem gets too bad and it just kind of exponentially gets worse, maybe like if you don't catch it early enough, sometimes bad things can happen, right? So you got to cover you got to cover all the bases, right? You got to make sure things are good. So consistently, like go out, doctor's appointments, blood work, make sure things are good internally, and then do what you can to eat right, sleep well, and exercise consistently. And that will make for a more fruitful day, more healthy life. And healthy lifestyle means a longer life, more fruitful life. And again, you'll just feel good because it just feels better when you eat healthy food, when you have a good night of sleep. I don't think there's not many feelings in the world that are better than waking up after an amazing night of sleep. Truly. There are not many better feelings. And consistent exercise, of course, when you're secreting the hormones, it is designed that it's difficult in the moment, but then when you're done, when you're sweating it out, you're feeling good, you're releasing the toxins, and that's super important for your body in the long run. So health has to be another very important cornerstone of this puzzle of life. The third one, and this is maybe the first one that I myself haven't really gotten right yet. Obviously, I'm still young, but for me, like my health is very solid, and the discipline I put towards my health is very good. And because I've been an athlete my whole life, it's kind of instilled in me, and my faith, of course, is very strong. This is the first one that I'm still trying to look for, but it's a career. It is a deep, meaningful, long-lasting career that fulfills you, that you enjoy doing. I think that is what makes a fruitful, happy life and fulfilling life. I've been working a job that I don't like these past couple of months, and it's really been hurting me. And then I realized, oh, yeah, so many people live a life where they work this exact type of job their whole life. And they never, they get comfortable in the position they're in and they never try to do something. So they just kind of fall into mediocrity and they just are permanently miserable. But they don't really, like, eventually they get numb to it. Eventually they don't really care about it anymore up to a certain point. And then they waste years of their life. Unfortunately, so many people fall into this trap. But what makes for a great life is a long-lasting career that you enjoy doing. You want to go to work most days. Obviously, some days you're always going to have some days you don't want to go into work no matter what. But you want to have something that you can do that brings money in and that you really do enjoy doing. And because obviously like your work's going to be the majority of your life for a good portion of your life. That's kind of the fact. And if it's something you hate doing or something you just are miserable in or it's just like mundane, it's just going to lead you to, you're going to blink and then 10 years will go by and you're not really changing. You're not really in a better position or a worse position. You're just kind of exactly where you are, but you're wasting your life kind of doing something that doesn't satisfy you, that doesn't fulfill you. And obviously, like the whole point of the puzzle is you're trying to put the pieces together to live as good of a life as possible. Obviously, it's never going to be perfect, but the career is an important part of life because it takes up so much of your time, so much of your adult life. It needs to be something that you enjoy doing. And if you don't enjoy doing it, it's really just going to be a miserable slog to the end, to retirement, and it's going to be a miserable time. Maybe you get to retirement and you manage to save up the money to retire, but not everyone gets to do that. And also the people that do that, they just they wasted another 30, 40 years because working a job that they hated because I guess that's the standard path. But just know that you don't have to work a bad job. You have to put in a little bit more effort to find the job that you want, the career that you want that's long lasting. But once you get there, like that's going to be a huge part of your life. So that being a huge part of your life, it has to be something you enjoy. And if you enjoy it, it will just make your days so much better every day. I'm personally still trying to figure out what that looks like for me, but it's the best time when I'm young, when you're young, to try new things, right? Try and figure out what you do actually enjoy doing, what you don't enjoy doing, kind of checking off the boxes and figuring out what the answer is actually going to be, right? And not everyone finds the answer, I think if you look for it, you look for the piece of the puzzle, I think you will find the answer and you will find what actually will fulfill you in the end. And then you have to do what it takes. Obviously, I'll get into some other steps in relation to career after, like as I go through the puzzle board. But like I'll go through some extra steps that you need to take perhaps to get to a career that you want. But that's really what is going to make your life so much better. And then the fourth corner is a partner, a long-lasting partner that you can be with, that can be by your side through it all. This is specifically talking about romantic relationships. And that is the most, like probably one of the best feelings ever, is being in love with someone, they love you back, and you have a long-lasting relationship, a marriage, maybe kids, maybe like just amazing stuff, right? Like there's nothing really more important than that, because eventually you'll get to the point where you leave your parents' house and you go, like obviously you don't want to be that guy that lives in their mom's basement. Again, that whole stereotype, it's not good for you and it's very humiliating. You want to eventually leave and go on your own, go out into the world, right? I'm lucky enough to have already experienced that because I went to a different country to go play football. So I actually experienced a big portion of living by myself, what it looks like, what it feels like, and the difference between by yourself and with someone by your side. You need that. That's just a fundamental human value that you need. And I'm not talking about sex and lust. I'm talking about long-lasting love and deep connections with each other. Again, unfortunately, not everyone finds that. But I believe if you look for it, you try and find that piece of the puzzle, I believe something will happen. It will manifest for you. God will provide something for you, anything, whatever it may be. But I think someone in your life is better than no one in your life. I think being by yourself on the journey is good up until a point, but eventually you do really get lonely, and you do really get to a point where you're yearning for that love. That love is something that is truly long-lasting. If it is something long-lasting, it's something truly spectacular, truly special that really does make up as well. It makes up a huge portion of your life, right? You know, as I talked about with the career, you're going to work, you're doing your job, but then you come home. Do you come home to someone that that you really love to be with and you spend so much time together, that's a great thing. That means that she or he, depending on which way you lean or who you are watching this, they'll like if you love them and you love each other, that's a beautiful thing. You're spending so much time with them, and that's a huge part of your life that you also want to be in a good state. You're obviously, again, in relationships, you're gonna have problems. It's not gonna be perfect, right? But you need to be in a good state. And if it is like that, then it's something truly fulfilling, truly fruitful for you going forward. It will only make your life even better. But if you don't have that, if you come home and the relationship's sour, it's tainted, it's you don't love each other anymore, or you come home and there's no one there to hug and to cuddle with and be with because you don't have anyone, because you're lonely. It's a big difference, and it's a big hole in your life that you definitely need to find something to fill it up in, because the romantic relationship is definitely one of the most important corners of this whole puzzle of life as well. So you can see where I'm going, right? Health, wealth, and relationships are the three biggest issues that people struggle with in this world today. A lot of people, they want to lose weight or they want to gain weight. A lot of people, they want to make money, and a lot of people, they want to fix their relationships or find a woman, find a good long-lasting relationship. It's the three biggest issues in the world, coupled by faith. Of course, faith being the number one driver for everything, as I've already talked about. That's why they're the cornerstones. Because if you can sort out those four things, if those four things are good, I think the rest will truly fall into place. And that's what makes it easy. It makes it easier to build the rest of the pieces of the puzzle if you have those four kind of locked in for yourself in your own life. So now we're going to move on to the kind of outer edges, the 8 pieces that are kind of in between the corners, because these are the next pieces that you got to do. Once you've sorted out the corners, which are the most important, then you got to sort out these next pieces, which are also important, not as important, but they're downstream from the 4 corners of the puzzle of life. So, which way am I going to go? I think we're going to start with relating to the career side, because I already hinted a little bit that there are things that are coupled with the career that are also super important for you. If you find out that the career that you want is something that you need the education for. Education is what I wrote down here. But education, like specifically formal education. I think even if you go to high school and then you don't go to university, I honestly think that that's fine. I'm not the type of guy that's like forcing people to go to secondary school is high school, to post-secondary education. I'm not that type of guy to push that. I honestly am not so sure about the whole validity of it all. But formal education is super important. Even if it is just high school, like the experiences you have, the people you meet, the things you learn, high school is a good way to figure out what you want to do, first and foremost. And the people you meet could last for a lifetime as well. So education being a part of your life is important, because especially if it ties to the career, if you need an education to get into a career, and most careers, unfortunately we live in a world where most careers do need some level of education, even if the system is rigged, you kind of do have to play the game a little bit. So the formal education part of the puzzle is important. It's important because it relates to, if you want that career, you figure out what you want. Now you have to figure out the steps that it takes to get there. And usually it means going to a university or a college, some sort of post-secondary, or if it's not that, there's some sort of certificate you have to take or some other course you have to take. Sort of like for example, personal training. You got to do a course for personal training. To be a personal trainer, you got to do CPR. You got to have multiple different certifications in order to, and you have to get experience before you can actually be trusted to be a coach and make the money that a PT makes. That's just an example, because obviously I've been looking into it, obviously if you can't tell, as a thing that I might try. But you have to have some level of education, some level of formal education included in that pursuit of a career. Like most careers, you need it, right? Unless you're like starting a business or you're starting something like that. Everything else, like if you want to be a doctor, you got to go through the hell of it, right? You got to go through the hell of the med school, right? The actual, like you go to university for 4 years and then you go to med school, and then you got to go do like shadow people, be in a hospital, do apprenticeship stuff. And then eventually, after maybe a decade of post-secondary education, you can be a practitioner. You can actually practice it, right? You can actually help people, which is why a lot of people want to be doctors, because they just want to help people, right? But you got to go through it, right? And I don't make the rules. I wish it was easier than having to go through all that, but that's how it works, right? So you got to do it. So you need to know what you want, right? If you want to be a doctor, you're going to have to go through that. So the formal education part of the life puzzle is important. You got to figure out what you're going to do, right? Like, if you know what you're going to do, you need to know what qualifications you need to have to have a bigger chance of getting that job that you want, that career that you want. Sometimes it doesn't include post-secondary education, but I still think high school is absolutely an important experience to go through, because of the fact that you meet people, you figure out more clearly what you want, what you're looking for. And I think that as education just in your life, education is definitely a huge part of the puzzle, because when you're, again, thinking about putting the pieces together, if you're connecting the education piece to the career piece, it's obvious, right? Like, it's very metaphorical the way I'm trying to describe this on purpose, the whole idea of the puzzle of life, because you need to put the piece in, and maybe sometimes the piece won't fit, right? And that's kind of the case with everything in this puzzle of life. Life is a big puzzle, but sometimes you're experimenting with different pieces. Maybe you have, like, I have 16 pieces here, but maybe there are way more than 16 pieces, right? And you're trying to fit the pieces, but they don't really fit, like, because you don't really enjoy the career you started, and it ends up not working out. You end up not really liking it as much as you thought, or you end up going to school and then you maybe have some epiphany and you're like, actually, you know what, I don't really want to do this, or you've been inspired to kind of pursue something else. But you need to find that connection between the career and the necessary education you need to have, qualifications you need to have of some kind that will help you get there. And if it's a business, and if you're starting a business and you're successful in business and you don't have a degree, like, that's good for you. Like, I honestly don't, like, I don't force it. I'm definitely not the guy that's going to say it's mandatory. I definitely do not think it's mandatory. But I think a lot of the problem with the bureaucracy of all of this stuff, the system in the way the world works, is for a lot of them you are going to need something. So you need to figure out what that something is, and then you can build a path for your life going forward as well. And then, kind of downstream from education, is learning. I just wrote learning, but it's specifically, you want a life where you're always trying to learn something new. You're always trying to grow. This has nothing to do with the formal education. It's completely separate. The formal education is something different, but it's connected because you're still learning something. You always want to be learning something new. You do not want to ever kind of feel like you're stagnating, that you're ever kind of staying in the same place for too long. Because, again, trying to figure out the pieces of life, right? You want to live a fulfilling life. Being in the same place for a long period of time is the exact opposite of fulfilling. It becomes miserable, becomes boring, it becomes mundane. And I don't think anyone really wants that. So you want to always be growing in some regard, learning something new, right? Going out there, whether it be through reading or through podcasts or just through, like, research, education. Like, a lot of people are very big into history. Like, that's always good to kind of read into old history, or like the world wars, and how the history of the world wars and all that stuff, or even go even further back, like Roman and Greek history. People are interested in that, and that's good stuff, because it's always good, even if that fact doesn't help you in your life. Like, even if learning about Roman history doesn't help you in your life, if you find it interesting, and learning something new, regardless of how much impact it has for you, it makes you feel good inside. It makes you feel like, because, like, it makes you feel like you're growing, because you're expanding your knowledge, you're expanding the wisdom that you have in your mind, and it just makes you feel like you're moving in a different direction. Even if the thing that you're learning isn't necessarily, like, going to help you, sometimes the things you learn will help you, and then that makes it even better. It makes it even more useful, because then you actually do experience that growth, that actual, real, tangible, physical, visible growth in your life. And that's a very good thing. But the learning, you have to learn something new every day, truly. Like, there's the saying, right? You learn something new every day. But when you don't learn anything new, it's pretty much because you're not doing anything new. It's because you're not looking for anything new. And again, you're staying in the same place. And staying in the same place is definitely not a piece of the puzzle that is going to leave you with this fulfilling life. But a piece of the puzzle is a life of learning, a life of constantly looking for new things, having your brain be a sponge to things, soaking in new information, and and using it as much as you can and applying it to your life, learning from the mistakes you make as well to then do better, and just constantly pursue and seek a life of constant growth every day. Again, nothing to do with the formal education, is just how you live the rest of your days, constantly looking for something different, something to learn, some insight that you can take and use it to move forward in your life. Perhaps you're watching this show, this exact episode, because you're trying to learn something new, because you're trying to put the pieces together in the puzzle of life. And I hope I'm doing a good job in teaching you some things. But the learning is a very important part of it, because it makes you feel like you're growing, even if it's not something that actually you can use in your life, like something like you're learning history. It's just interesting. It's a good way to spend your time. It's a better way to spend your time than scrolling and all of video games and all of the the stuff that wastes our time. Just spending time learning something new, regardless of how actually important it is for you right now. And you never know, it could be important for you later, but still, it makes you feel like you're growing, and sometimes it actually allows you to grow in great ways. And the learning is definitely a very important part. You have to constantly look for something new. You have to constantly humble yourself, kind of deny your past knowledge, try and find, maybe, like, think of yourself as like you know a concept, but you need to make sure you know the concept. Like, maybe you're wrong. Try and kind of look at it from that lens. Like, maybe you're wrong, and maybe learning about something related to it or some other aspect of the concept you're trying to think about is a good way to find that growth in your life. Think of it like that. Think of it like that. That you never will know everything. You never will. So you always need to kind of double back and find new things to learn, or kind of reiterate old points and constantly find ways to grow mentally and physically in yourself every day. And again, that is what will help you keep moving forward in your life. So that was that side of the board, but the puzzle. Now we're going to go to the next two pieces, which is related to the partner, the relationships. The two pieces, I'm just going to kind of put them together. One piece is family, and the other piece is friends. Two completely different things, but very related, of course, to the people that are closest to you, right? Even if you don't have a romantic partner, you still need to have great relationships with family and friends. You see many people that are broken because they had some argument with their parents and a tough move out, and they haven't talked to them, or a sister or a brother, and they live kind of with this anger and regret for them. They don't want to talk to them again because of whatever situation happened. And that's a very miserable thing. It's a thing that kind of, it's very unfortunate, because it really does harm so many people. Like, it harms so many people's lives. And you need to have a great relationship with your family. Like, if there's any sort, like, I felt it myself in certain situations in my life, if there's any sort of strain, any sort of barrier between you and your closest family members, it really hurts you. It really sits deeper with you, and you want it to be fixed. You don't want to have anything caught between you and the people that you've lived your whole life with, that you've grown up with, that you love the most deeply. And similarly with friends, although it's not the exact same type of relationship, your friends are the people that kind of shape you as well, right? You are who you spend the most time with, right? You are who you spend the like the five friends you spend the most time with is pretty much who you are, right? Because you bounce off of each other. You kind of feed off of each other's energies. And if you have great relationship with some of your best friends, where you're able to consistently go out, do things, have fun, or just, whether you go to the gym, a gym partner, or you're playing sports together, whatever that thing is, that's also a very fruitful thing. Very good relationships that kind of keep you alive and keep you moving. And again, you have other people to lean on when you're going through tough times, and it's a great thing. But if you have bad relationships with friends, if you cut people off, if you just try and be arrogant with things, then it's always gonna lead to more misery. It's always gonna lead to more just like loneliness, really. And family, friends are also very important when it comes to the whole aspect of relationships. The relationship doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It absolutely is just, you're building relationships with people. Sometimes things will happen that put a barrier in between those relationships, but you cannot let that sit. You cannot let it linger. The longer it lingers, the more you'll kind of be living your life with the regret, being like, I should probably talk to him about this, or we should make things right. That's why, like, when you're on your deathbed, and And if something terrible happens to you and you want to die, or like you're going to die because of the cancer or whatever the thing is, like the first thing people do in that moment is ask to see their parents, or ask to see their friends, or the people that were closest to them that they cut off because of a bad relationship they used to be so close to, and then they ended up cutting them off. They're the first people that they call, especially if they have such a personal close relationship with them, like, or they used to before they cut them off. That's the first thing they do, is they will call for the people that they love. Usually it's like a parent. If they had a strained relationship with their parents, it would be the first people they call, even if if they're on their deathbed, because that's the people that mean the most to them internally, and the regrets that they feel for not dealing with the situation come out in the desperation of thinking that you're going to die, right? So don't let that be what happens to you. Make sure the situations that are that you're caught in between, and that kind of get in between your relationships with the people you love, your family and your friends. Make sure that those relationships are solved. Make sure those situations are solved. Make sure the relationships are able to be more fruitful going forward. That you get through the difficulties and overcome them. Just as you should be doing the same thing with your romantic partner, as I talked about a little bit already. But your family and friends are also separate pieces of the puzzle, because they're different. There's different roles for your family and for your friends. Like perhaps you tell your friends stuff that you won't tell your parents. That's by design. It's because there's a lot of personal things that you can really only discuss with friends that maybe you don't want your parents to know because you're embarrassed. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think you need people to lean on for every different type of situation, but you need people you can truly love in different ways. Like family love is way different from brotherly love, like a group of close friends that have that brotherly relationship. Much different feel to it than a family relationship, but both are incredibly important for you to do well in your life, and to not be lonely, to be fruitful, and to have people to lean on during the tough times, that you may be able to have extra support and help to overcome them. But you need to be honest with them. You need to squash whatever bugs are in between you, whatever things might be harming the relationships, and you don't want to be cutting anyone off, because that'll be the greatest regrets that you'll have, is not talking more to your mom, or not talking more to your brother, or a good close friend that you were with, cutting him off and losing the relationship with him. You don't want any of that to happen. I think your life is much more fruitful and abundant if you have a great family, if you have great friends, right? Some people aren't blessed with a good family. Like some people truly do have abusive parents, or abusive siblings, and terrible relationships with the people around them. But those are the types of people that they need friends around them to truly kind of fill up those gaps a little bit. And there are a lot of people that don't have a lot of friends, so then they need to lean on their family even more. Hopefully for you, I hope you're watching this and you're in a good position, a solid position. You have a combination of both, right? Family could mean like maybe your parents are abusive, but you have like an uncle that that you really love and cherish and spend a lot of time with, right? You need that father figure, you need that mother figure, whoever it is to you. You need those people in your life, and you need friends, brothers to bounce off of, to keep you accountable and keep you moving forward. And they're different types of relationships, but both super crucial and critical in your life. So ideally, as a person, hopefully, I'm hoping for you that you're not in a position where you have a tough relationship with these people, because it's just who they are. Hopefully, you'll be able to overcome whatever things you have between you. But if you don't have anything between you, you should be making sure to cherish both of those relationships and lean even further into those relationships. Try and do more things with friends. Try and spend more time with family as much as you can, because it'll only be here for a certain amount of time. You don't know when they're gone, right? And you don't know when something might happen to you. So just with that knowledge, it'll allow those relationships to thrive and to flourish even more, and that'll just make your life a whole lot better in many different ways. Again, two different types of relationships, but two different ways that your life will be better. Same thing with like romantic partner. It's a different type of relationship. All three, right? If you look at all three are different types of relationships. But if all three are good in your life, that you're looking good. Like you're looking good. You're having a lot more better of a time. There's always going to be difficulties, but you need to be there to overcome them rather than let it eat at you. And that's what's going to lead you to regret. So we don't want that. We don't want regrets. Live your life with as low regrets as possible. So you have to think, what are we going through that like would make me regret this versus what decision should I make that I won't regret? You got to think about it as much as you can. Obviously, you can never be perfect, but when it comes to relationships, it to me at least is the easiest thing. Try and patch up the things that you got between yourselves and lean into each other to help each other grow. Family, friends, romantic partners, and those are three very important puzzle pieces that if you have them right, you're doing pretty well for yourself when it comes to the whole puzzle of life. So, now we're going to talk about finances. I have a separate piece for finances, and here's the reason why. Because I talk about career, I talk about education, I talk about how you need to have a good career, and that's what makes your life fruitful and fulfilling. But sometimes the career it doesn't pay. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it does pay, other times it just doesn't pay well enough. So that's why I wanted to separate the idea of having finances. Money shouldn't be your primary goal. It shouldn't be the first thing you think about. But if you want to have a beautiful, loving wife or husband, and you want to have kids, I think kids, like when we're talking about relationships, to have a family, it includes also like your family, right? You have your parents and your siblings, but you also have your future family, which is your wife and your kids. I think that is what will make a good life. But if you're trying to have a wife, you're trying to get a house or get a car and have kids, right? No matter how many kids you're trying to have, they're expensive, right? You need the money, and that's why financial freedom is a concept in general. Because if you want to have a fruitful life, you have to have at least a good amount of money, a certain threshold level of money where you can be good, right? You can have a place to live, you can have a place for your kids to live and grow up in, and you can be able to have the kids being confident that you'll be able to provide for them. As a person living this life, the puzzle pieces of life, sometimes you need a side hustle. Sometimes you need something on the side that makes you a little bit of money. You need to hustle, you need to make a business, whatever the thing is. But if the career pays, good. If the career you love to do in your life pays, that is the ideal situation for a good life. But sometimes the career doesn't pay. And so then you have to find other ways. You got to get a little bit creative to find things that do pay in some regard, because your finances need to be sorted. You need to be responsible with your finances. You need to have a good portion of investment, have a good portion of actual expenses. And unfortunately, because you have to go through taxes as well. You need to separate and budget correctly with the money that you do make from your career. And you need to be conscious about how you use your money so that you can put it into the right things. You don't want to put it into whatever, like drugs or gambling and all this kind of stuff that destroys the lives of many people. But you do want to put it into a car, into a house, into a family. I think those are the three biggest things you want to put your money into. You need to be responsible with how you use your money. And it's related in a way to, because I actually messed up the order of things. Obviously, as I go through the pieces, you'll see how I've gone through it. But like when I show the picture at the end of this episode, but I wrote here, health is in the corner. And then I put finances on top of health rather than next to career. And finances is related to health because well, I actually didn't mention this when talking about health, but I felt like it was pretty self-explanatory. Like, you shouldn't be doing drugs, you shouldn't be smoking, you shouldn't be drinking alcohol. Like, you shouldn't be putting things in your body that harm your body, right? Obviously, if you're living a life where you have a good diet, you exercise, you sleep, I would think that that would be self-explanatory. But I am going to isolate that again, just in case you didn't get the idea. Like, this stuff harms you, just straight up, right? And this stuff is expensive, right? It goes hand in hand in that way. If you're focused on your health and you're so locked in on your health, you're not spending this much money on things that really do hurt you. Your finances will very much benefit as well, just kind of as a byproduct of it. Because, like, again, drugs, alcohol, and smoking, all that's super expensive to keep up, right? It's super expensive to maintain. Gambling is an addiction, is even worse. So it's connected in the way that, like, you have to be responsible with your money. You have to be responsible with like how you invest, where you put your money into, and then you can use it if you do the right things. Then you should be able to use your finances to then spend the money in the ways that you can, right? That you can in order to live a good life, right? Like, money's not the measure of success, but you need money in some regard to get to that point. Like, you don't want to buy, like, you don't want to buy jewelry, or you don't want to spend it on gambling, right? You want to buy, first and foremost, a house, right? I think everybody wants a house, a place to live, a place to grow up, a place to have their kids grow up in. And if you're trying to start a family, and I believe a family is included in this puzzle of life, then you need that finance. You need those finances to be in tip-top shape to have a house, to have a car, most likely, and to raise kids and to have a family and provide for them. And again, to keep your health in check is also related to it. You need to be responsible with your money and of course make the money, right? You need to first make the money and be responsible with it as well. And then you can use it as a tool. It can just be a tool. It doesn't have to be your whole life. It doesn't have to be the only thing you're focused on, but it can be a tool to heighten the experiences of everything else that is in this puzzle of life. So that's why I've included it as a separate thing, finances versus career, right? And versus health. I've included them as a little bit of different things on purpose because you really can separate it, right? And now the next ones are kind of relating to faith in a little regard. Again, I messed up really where I wanted to put them on the board, but you get the idea. Obviously, I'll show the puzzle at the end of the video, as I said already. This is related to faith. So the first one, there's three pieces left of the actual outside of the puzzle. The next one is servitude. I wrote servitude down because a life where you serve others, where you help others, where you give back to the world, you help those that are in need in some regard, is something truly fulfilling. I truly believe we as humans have been made to serve. We often take so much for ourselves, but it feels so much better internally for us if we serve, we give back in some way. Sometimes the serving is going out to a soup kitchen and actually serving the homeless, for example, or serving is just giving money to charities or even starting a charity yourself if you have the means to, or giving money to the church in some regard. And I put servitude next to career because career is a way to serve, right? Even if you're working a job you don't like, you're still serving someone in some regard. Obviously, you're making money from it, but you should look at it as a way to serve others in some regard. Like if you're working an office job, you're serving your colleagues, you're serving your coworkers, and you're serving the people whose things you're processing. If you have to process statements, you need to send emails, or if you're customer service, it's literally called customer service for a reason. You're serving people, right? It's some level of servitude, and it feels good inside. Even if, you don't like the job or the career is the thing that's more important to you, the idea of serving is super important as well. And sometimes it's related directly to your career, to your job, to the work that you do, and other times it can be completely separate. But I think we as humans have this internal desire to serve and help others. And when we do, it makes us feel so much better than if we do just like take for ourselves. And taking for ourselves feels good in the moment, but it's an instant gratification that wears off pretty quick. And again, going back to the whole live your life with as little regrets as possible, you got to think about these things. Giving back to others, maybe you don't want to initially because sometimes it's hard for you to part ways with the money you have or the time you have in some regard. But when you do it, you do feel so much better about yourself. Like you just feel like, yes, you're really helping people and it's a great thing. It's a great experience. You're giving people food. You're giving people money. You're giving people resources that they don't have with the resources you've been blessed with. And that's a good thing. And I think that's absolutely necessary to be a part of the piece of the puzzle. The serving others, a life of serving others is really something truly important. And another piece that is right next to it, again, similarly to some other things, I've separated because I think that there's enough here where they are separate concepts. I wrote impact. You have to have an impact on people's lives. It's related to serving because if you serve others, inevitably you're going to be having an impact on their lives in some regard. But I think impact is a little bit different because you can have impact without necessarily serving others in like a physical way. You can have an impact by acting in a way that people would want to follow. You can have an impact by saying something to someone that really changes their perspective, right? Those are just a couple of ways you can have an impact. You're showing other people through your actions things that will help them live a better life and exposing some things that are internal within themselves to potentially cause them to make changes. You can only make an impact through your actions, really. But impact is also related to the people directly around you. Like serving also applies to the people around you, but serving is maybe more so giving back to the world, giving back to other people, right? The people around you want to have an impact on the people around you in some regard. Your family, your friends, your relationships, all the people that are closest to you, you want to have some level of impact. They have an impact on you because you lean on them. They make you less lonely, and they of course fill up the puzzle of life because those good relationships are super good for you. But you also want to have an impact on them as well. You don't want it to just be a one-way relationship. Relationships are a two-way street in all aspects. You want to have an impact on them, again, through your action, through helping them get through their troubles, through being there for them to lean on when they need to, or to saying things that help them kind of get a different perspective on life, help them overcome difficulties and addictions, adversities that they may be dealing with. And you do want to have an impact on the world in some regard, and it is through serving. But I think impact specifically is something that can be a little bit different because you can have an impact without necessarily doing that physical serving. You can have an impact by living a life like Christ wants you to, having a life like that other people look at you and they want to follow you. They want to be like how you live because whether not in your whole life, but maybe one specific thing you do. And if you make a change of someone else's life because of what you do, you're having an impact on them. So you want to be an example to the people around you, especially if you're going to have children. You want to be a very, very important example to your children. And you can only do that through action, through saying certain words in the right moments, but words sometimes can be meaningless. It is really more so through action, but having an impact on the people around you as well as serving others too. I think different enough things that they are separate pieces, but also very, very important for you going forward because it only makes you feel better about yourself knowing that you are an impact to others, that you are helping others, that you are serving others. It will only help you kind of, not only you're doing the will of God, but it also helps you feel warmer inside, better inside about yourself. And it will help you learn to not be so selfish and instead be selfless. And that is a very noble quality, a very good quality, respectable quality that will only make your life more abundant, more fruitful by helping others as well. And then the final piece of the outside part of the puzzle is peace. Is peace. Deep inner peace. I've talked about it on the show already, but to have an internal sense of peace is really the most crucial thing. I think everyone really at the end of it all wants it. And it's right next to faith. I put it this time very intentional on purpose. I put peace right next to faith because of the fact that faith is what helps you achieve peace. Faith in God, belief in God is what helps you achieve peace. If you can have peace in your days, peace in your decisions, peace in what you're going through, even in peace through the storm, the calm in the storm, and even if you're going through difficulties, you're able to be conscious about what's going to happen moving forward, that it's all going to be okay in the end. A deep sense of inner peace is probably one of the most great feelings that we can experience as humans. And all of these things eventually come together to bring you some level of peace. But at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do that will give you peace. It is through faith, it is through asking God for peace that He will grant you peace in your days. But yes, in life, the world, everything that goes on, there's sometimes very rarely an opportunity for peace. But if you can have moments in your day where you're meditating, you're thinking deeply about something, you're present in the moment, if you can just have a couple moments every day where you have that little moment of peace, it will make everything else easier to go through. It will make the difficulties even more easier to overcome. And it will make the problems seem little in comparison to everything else going on, right? So you want to cultivate those good feelings, those positive feelings, the feelings of peace that can truly live within you. If you truly give it to God, and if you can find the pieces of the puzzle to life, eventually it will all come together to give you a sense of peace. It might not be right now. Sometimes it's very hard because you're on the come up. You're still trying to put the pieces together, right? So it's hard to actually have that internal peace, but at some point that piece gets inserted into the puzzle because that's really the only thing that you want at the end of all of it. Like, you think about why we're doing all of this. Because at the end of it all, you want to look back and say that you lived a good life and be at peace with yourself and look back and not have at least not many regrets or not any deep regrets. And that's really like the whole point. So you want to do these things to eventually get to that peace, and giving it to God, and of course trying your best in whatever you can, and being present as much as you can during your days, at least having a couple moments a day where you are present. Having that peace in your days is really, really important. It is crucial to kind of helping everything else fall into place as well. So that is kind of the outside edges of the puzzle. So there are 4 things in the middle. This will be a lot quicker because it's the whole point. Is it's like the middle is not necessarily as important. It's more important to start the foundation, and then once you have the foundation, it becomes a little bit easier to figure out what actually goes in the middle. So the 4 pieces that are in the middle, 3 pieces are hobbies. It's just hobby, hobby, hobby. That's very important. You need to do things in your life that you enjoy, that you have fun with, that you can do with other people, preferably, that give you joy in your life, just pure joy. It can be sports. Sometimes I guess it can be video games. It can be other experiences, things that you really love to do. It could be arts, painting, dancing, whatever the thing is, right? Things that you love to do. Find some hobbies, right? Find some things that you can go and do, preferably with other people. But if it's by yourself, it's not the worst. But things that you can truly get some enjoyment and satisfaction and true pure joy out of life from. Because you can think about all these other things that are around the puzzle, but you can neglect actually taking a step back and enjoying your life. You can be so hyper focused on making everything perfect that it ends up kind of just over stressing you and overwhelming you in the first place anyway. So you end up getting to the point where, it actually just doesn't work out, right? So you need to have, like I put 3 hobbies, but in theory it can be as many as you want. 3 is obviously a good number. 3 is probably like the most ideal number, but it can be as many as you want. As many things that you can do that truly fill you up with joy, that you truly love doing. That will help you regulate a lot of the stresses and a lot of the difficulties that will come with trying to figure out all the other pieces of life. You're trying to figure out the other pieces of life, of the puzzle of life. And having a few set things that you have here that you're like, I love doing these things. Let's do them, a few times a week or a couple times a month, just to kind of regulate, reset, be a little more at peace because you're enjoying lots of great gifts of life. That's also a fairly important part of the puzzle, and it's probably overlooked and neglected at times because we all want to be all like hyper focused on the task at hand or whatever. Whereas it's actually very, very crucial to do some things that you just love, that don't have any impact towards your growth or your career, whatever. Things you just purely love to do them as much as you can. And that will make your days a lot better. And it will make the stresses and the tough times a lot better as well. It can be 3 hobbies, or it can be as many as you want in theory. And the final piece of the puzzle, the final piece that is in the middle, is the idea of novelty. You need in your life some new things at times. I think the best way to do this is by traveling. I think that is why a lot of people go when they travel. For that exact reason, because they see new sights, meet new people, speak a new language, experience a new culture. That's why a lot of people travel, for that exact reason. I think traveling is a very, very good way to experience novelty in your life. But even just in your days, it's possible to experience novelty. Because as I kind of was talking about in other concepts and other puzzle pieces, when things are the same for too long, it kind of just gets boring. Like, you need to be very careful, because the whole point is your romantic partner is the one thing that should stay the same, right? You need to differentiate what should stay the same and what should change and what should be new. So you need to be very careful. I just want to maybe emphasize that point and give you a little bit of a warning, right? And preface this in that way. Be careful, right? Some things, it's probably better for them to stay the same, but a job you don't like, it probably shouldn't be staying the same, right? Like living in a crappy apartment probably shouldn't be staying the same. But the novelty in your life is what makes things great. It's what makes things abundant. It's what makes things kind of whole. It is what kind of puts everything all together, right? Like something that can allow you to do more is you eat new foods, you try new things, you try a new workout routine. That can keep you motivated to exercise, to eat healthy, if you're able to try new things to keep it fresh, right? Keep it fresh, keep yourself kind of motivated. Change the ideas. Some level of change in a small way goes a long way, right, in these smaller things, or if it be with regards to just like the bigger things, right, how you go about your work, right, that type of thing, your routine, your daily routine, how you go day after day. It's a very, very important thing. And also, like as I said already, like just traveling, right? Traveling. That's why so many people travel, like see new sights, experience new things, right? Like when you're just taking the same route to work, every single day, it just kind of becomes one blob at one point. Like because it just becomes like your brain will look at periods of your life and put it all into one memory. It will squish it all into one memory. It will squish years into one memory because everything was the same all the time. But you don't want just one mundane, bland memory of life. You want many amazing, beautiful experiences. The best way to do it is by experiencing new things. New things, whether it be traveling, seeing new sights, that's probably the best way to do it. At least maybe once a year if you have the means to do it. And maybe a couple times a year if you can figure out places to go that you can drive to, that would always be good. But, obviously other sides of the world, parts of the world where you can fly to, it's a little more expensive, right? So you need to, again, going back to the finances, you need to plan right and budget correctly and make sure everything else is kind of sorted. But there's a good way to experience novelty, and just novelty in your days by changing some small things, changing some routines up a little bit, changing the way you go about certain things to just try and keep it fresh, right? And keeping it fresh will keep you active. It'll keep you stimulated, for lack of a better word, but it will keep you truly confident that you're moving in the right direction, confident that you're growing, confident that you're moving forward, right? And then it also goes back to the learning. The learning is, when you're learning something new every day, it makes you feel better for that exact reason, because it's something new and it's something different. It's a different perspective in your mind, and it just makes you feel like you're on a better path. And it keeps things fresh, it keeps things good, and it keeps you moving forward. So the novelty is how we are going to kind of put the final piece down. So I made 16 pieces of this puzzle. This is honestly like probably as much as I would do for my own life. Like this is kind of like I'm still trying to figure out what pieces go where, like what specifically the education looks like, what specifically the career looks like, what specifically the hobbies are, even the novelty I want to experience, the partner. I'm yet to find that long-lasting partner yet, like romantic partner. I'm yet to find that person yet. I'm still trying to figure out what specific pieces are going to be going in these spots. But I think this is as a template, it makes sense because it's different for you. What I'm going to be doing is going to be completely different from what you're going to be doing. And that's why it's a puzzle of life, because it's always going to be different. There's probably millions of pieces, but you have to kind of arrange them in the best way you possibly can to live as good of a life as you possibly can. Unfortunately, not every person is able to put the pieces together properly, and then they end up living mediocre, mundane lives, or unfortunately, in the extreme situations, they fall apart. Right? Some people are just dealt a bad hand from the start, whether it be through their health or whether it be through the people around them. They're just dealt a bad hand, the place that they live in. Right? So if you've been dealt, regardless of what hand you've been dealt, there is a puzzle to put together. It's going to be completely different, and it might not be exactly how I've done it, but I think this template's a good idea as to how to have a good amount of balance in your life, and where you're focused on many of these different things, and to be able to kind of put it into a concept, into an idea that's a little bit more compact and put together, so that you can rationalize in your head, you can have a little structure so that you know what you need to be working towards. And regardless of the hand you've been dealt, you should still try and find the answers. Try and find what pieces fit. The piece that will fit for me will not fit for you. And that is the ultimate truth. So find what works. And you can only really find what works through experience, through finding different things and figuring it out. And eventually you'll get to the point where, hopefully, if you've made the right decisions, you've done the right things, you'll get to the point where you can look back and you're truly at peace, and you truly appreciate the life you lived. You lived as much as you possibly could have lived, and did it as well as you possibly could have. That's what we all want at the end of the day. Fundamentally, none of us want to be miserable. None of us want to kind of look back with regrets, right? We want to live as fruitful and as fulfilling of a life as possible. So if you follow this idea of the life as a puzzle, you have to figure out what pieces go where. I think you will do pretty well for yourself, and I think Start it one at a time. Don't try and put all the pieces together right away. That's going to be the biggest mistake. You're just going to stress yourself out. Take it one step at a time or a couple steps at a time. And then eventually, over time, it's not going to happen overnight, right? Eventually, over time, you will be able to kind of start to see what the puzzle's looking like and be able to fill in the extra gaps. But it won't happen right away. And you have to kind of be patient with yourself, be patient with God, because God's timeline is completely different from yours. His plan is completely different from yours. Be patient, but try and figure it out. And I think this is a good template for you. I'm actually going to put it on the screen right now. I've said multiple times I was gonna, so here it is. If you made it this far, you get to see exactly what it looks like. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect idea because maybe I could have put different pieces in different spots, but the point is still true. It still rings true. That life is a puzzle. That life is something that you need to kind of go through experiences, and you need to figure out how to put the pieces together. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't able to. So hopefully just having this idea in your mind can be a way that you try to strive to do better and try to overcome the tough moments, the temptations, the sins you're dealing with, the addictions you're going through, to truly do better and live as fulfilling of a life as you possibly can. Again, it'll never be perfect. Everyone will fall short. Things will happen. Circumstances you can't control will happen. But it's about what you can control. It's about how you respond to the things that would potentially happen in your life and how you can change the puzzle, right? Put the pieces in that you need to put in. And if something happens that you need to change things around, you change things around to try and continue to make the life that you live as good, as fulfilling, as joyful, as meaningful as it possibly can be. And remember that it all has to be backed by faith. That is the first thing that you must have before you kind of go in and do any of these other things and try and figure out what the pieces are. It has to be backed by faith, the belief in something higher than yourself, the God, the creator of the universe. So that's what I got for today. I really hope you enjoyed it. This was a very well thought out episode that I really tried my best to make it as good as possible for you. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know. The only way I know you enjoyed it is by you showing your support, by liking the video, leaving a comment, telling me you enjoyed it, right? Subscribing on YouTube, following on Spotify, watching some of the other videos if you really did enjoy this one. That's the only way that I can know that you enjoyed it, that I'm not putting in all of this effort for nothing. That's the only way I can know is by you guys, is by you showing your support in these ways that you're able to, that you have the power to. So I hope you enjoy it. And as always, I appreciate you for being here. And I hope that you learned at least something here today and that you can help, and that this video, this template can help you put the pieces together for your life in a little bit better of a way, that you can be able to overcome the things you're dealing with and truly live as good of a life as possible. So that's all I got for today. It's been a long one, so I really do hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of the 365 podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. As always, I sign off in the way I always do. Continue to glorify God every day throughout your life. As always, I will see you tomorrow for the next episode.